I spoke with Ann Schwartzman, the Policy and Program Director of the Pennsylvania Prison Society. She has been involved with the Prison Society since the 1980s and has seen development through time as both the nature of mass incarceration and the public awareness of it have changed through the years. I first wanted to know what sort of changes she had witnessed in this time period.
Oh, I really do think it's more of a public issue now, and we're even seeing legislators who would never ever touch this issue starting to look at it and take it very seriously. But although I'd like to say it's based on humanistic terms and different ideas of justice, I really think it is because of the economic impact and the realization that when you incarcerate so many individuals and spend so much money on the criminal justice budget, that you have less and less dollars to use for seniors or for housing or for young children. So I guess I'm a little jaded on it, but I really do think it's the economic impact that has put this issue more on the regular kind of map.
I found her perspective on this interesting, though not entirely surprising. Having such a large impact on the economy, it makes sense that as the economy begins to worsen, people will look to these types of issues for reform. I asked Ms. Schwartzman how aware the public is of the issues associated with mass incarceration.
I think for the most part the public has not paid attention, but again because of the economics of the issue and the fact that more and more people are being incarcerated or are being involved in the system on probation, parole, whatever. I find now that whenever you talk to a group of students or people at a church or whatever, that you can't talk to the group without a number of the individuals raising their hand that they know somebody involved in the system. So between the cost of it and the sheer number of people that are part of it, almost everybody is impacted to a certain degree, much more so than ever before. And when you combine this with discussion now about increasing taxes and additional costs for tuition for students and, schools that are falling apart, and the housing bubble and just everything that's going awry, you really start thinking, maybe this is time to change. Maybe we really need to do something.
As with any issue that becomes publicized, there are bound to be some misconceptions. I asked what misconceptions she commonly encountered about both prisoners and the issue itself of mass incarceration.
Well, the biggest misconception about prisoners as people, I think, is that prisoners are different people, that they're not like regular neighbors or family members or your best friend down the street, that they're monsters. And because it's a misconception, people hold fast to that, and yet it's not until you actually meet somebody who's incarcerated or was incarcerated that you find out they're just like you are. They're regular human beings, and maybe they didn't make very good decisions at some point, but they're just regular people. Mass incarceration, though, is, I think, a different story because it's not looking at the individual, it's really looking at the bigger picture. And I think the biggest misconception is that mass incarceration does not impact anyone who's not part of the system. Because I think it does affect everyone, either now or in the future, and on every single arena that you can think of, whether it's economics or family relationships or the stability of your community. It just undermines everything.
Understanding this, my next question was then how an issue like large-scale imprisonment could have grown such deep roots in our society and more concretely in our economy.
I think it's the kind of issue that's very, very quiet for a real long time, and then all of a sudden you start seeing the ramifications of it in local budgets and state budgets, maybe even more on the local and state than on the federal budget. And all of a sudden, you really have to decide what your priorities in spending are going to be. In Pennsylvania, which is what I'm more familiar with, we have a budget now that's over $2 billion just for prisons. And, this is the prisons, this is the bricks, this is the mortar, this is running the prisons, this isn't necessarily the programs or dealing with the actual people. But that comes at a very high cost because you're putting so much money into just the running of the facilities. You don't have that money for other areas.
From speaking to Ms. Schwartzman, I was able to gain a more clear understanding of the nature of mass incarceration as an issue, and truly grasp how costly it is. Truly, the prison system's cost to the nation is much greater than the pure brick-and-mortar cost of housing inmates. While the government is allotting money away from education or other worthy causes and towards punishing men and women, often removing them from the workforce and their families, and hundreds of millions of dollars are being pumped into the system and violent crime rates continue to increase, maybe the solution is not to lock up more citizens, but maybe rather to work on preventing crime in the first place.